Hello, everyone. This is CASELS. I'm here with Doc again, and we're going to be discussing the situation in Bakhmut, since it's been going on for a long time, obviously, and Doc's been there quite a bit in the past and going to be there in the near future, I'm sure. And yeah, so Doc, first of all, how you doing?
Good, man. Thank you for having me back again. I appreciate that. And we are bunkered down at the moment, actually, because our friends across the border are giving us a nice night aerial show. And but yeah, we're good, man.
All right, good. I'll stay safe, and yeah, just so everybody knows, we might have occasional interruptions because the connection sometimes gets interrupted, so don't be alarmed. Um, so, Doc, the biggest question I see going around is why are Ukrainian forces still trying to hold Bakhmut, considering tremendous losses I'm sure they're taking as well as the Russians are? That's a kind of a big question everybody's talked about. Nobody's given a really, really concise answer I've seen. So, if you could kind of give some light to that situation, I'd appreciate that.
Sure. Well, the um, village of Bakhmut is, it's not really strategically located. It's not a place that is, really super significance. It just happens to be um, halfway between the physical border of what is called Donbass, which is the Lugansk and Donetsk oblasts or counties, and my city, the city of Kharkov. And so, in order to successfully advance back north from the southeastern quadrant of Donbass, they have to go through Bakhmut before they get to Izium, before they get to Kharkov. And so that's really what it comes down to. It just happens to be that this is the next dot that you have to connect to get back up here.
All right, well, that's a good way of describing it. I appreciate that. Um, you know, Russia's been trying to take it since what, July of last year, and even said they took it once.
Retake it.
Yeah, retake it. Yeah, uh, and they, said they took it. I think in August, even though they apparently lied about that. And obviously, there was a great big bit of embarrassment to the Russians. Obviously, I'm sure they're past the embarrassment part, and now it's just trying to move the offensive forward because Russia's
Correct.
trying to, retake what it lost in eastern Ukraine over the summer
Right.
and the fall.
Right.
And until probably what I'd say December, probably November, that Russia was pretty much doing frontal assaults on Bakhmut, not flanking assaults like we are seeing now as much. What changed in the Russian mindset that they finally decided to actually use real tactics?
Well, first I would say that based upon the time that I spend in Bakhmut, which I am there 2 to 3 times a week and have been for the past 365 days. They have actually been coming in from due south as well as due east into Bakhmut. So they've actually been hitting us on two different sections working in. The reason why they did not really try to flank from the northeast side, which they finally successfully did through Soledar, is simply logistics. They did not have the manpower. They did not have the equipment, the ammunition, the artillery. They simply were not equipped and able to make a greater flanking assault around the northeast sector of Bakhmut. And so finally, having put those pieces in place, they did, in fact, begin to do that and work their way through Soledar. And now they encompass about 80% of Bakhmut.
Mm. And on that standpoint, There's what now? Only about two roads that supply Bakhmut from the west now that are under Ukrainian control. Two
Well,
main.
we have the one, yeah. We have the one road, which is how I get in there, which is on the due west side. That we take through Slavyansk and Kramatorsk, and then eventually through Konstantinivka, enabling us to get into the due western side. The northwestern road has been blocked off for about 2 months now,
Mm,
and there's only one tiny village road coming through Chasiv Yar on about the 9:30 section of Bakhmut that enables us to get in as well. So you have like one good road going in and one really difficult but able to get in road.
okay. So, obviously that's not an ideal situation for the Ukrainians and yourself because,
It's not
yeah, it's trying to move supplies and people and get
correct.
get people out too. Um,
That's the hard part.
yeah. Would you say one of the reasons Ukraine has held Bakhmut is as long as they have is because it's a good opportunity to kill as many Russian soldiers as they can because Russia is so bent on taking it?
Um, I, I don't really think that would be one of the motivating factors as to why they've been so steadfast on
Mm,
holding Bakhmut is simply to kill a greater, larger number of Russian soldiers. Again, it is back to the strategic importance of this area, either to prevent or to hinder at least Russia's ability to once again make another march back up towards Kharkov. And so um, it has become really very symbolic for Ukraine.
mm,
And the I don't want to say quiet fear, but it is certainly being whispered louder and louder amongst the commanders that I deal with, which is a pretty good number.
mm,
Um, this is really like a do or die.
mm,
This is really a situation of the credibility of the Kiev leadership, the command. There's a lot of things at stake, and unfortunately, you know, the prognosis, the outlook for maintaining Bakhmut is not really in our favor.
yeah. I mean, I can test that. There's about three or four times in the past I thought it was going to fall. So it's kind of a day to day situation there sometimes.
It is.
Um, and kind of touch. You mentioned Solidar and Russia pushing through there.
Mm-hmm.
Primarily Wagner Group
Mm-hmm.
went through there.
Correct. Correct.
Um, Obviously Wagner Group's pretty much spent most of their uh, assault force there taking Solidar because they kind of stalled there. But could you kind of talk through about what kind of went down in Solidar? Because it was, I understand, a huge artillery barrage from the Russians. Just
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And that's really what happened. They were able to position from the southeast um, enough artillery where our guys were literally forced, almost by the hour to reposition and step back and reposition and step back and reposition. And Soledad is actually a I want to call it like an easily fortified area,
mm,
but it is a good place for defense fortification, and the fact that they were able to hammer us out of there really is an indication of the volume, the number of artillery and equipment that they have been able to finally get brought into the area to push their advance forward.
hmm Would you say I mean, because obviously Russia wasn't able to field this kind of artillery and equipment before until, I don't know what, December, November.
Mm-hmm.
Was it just they were too spread out, or they finally got like Cold War stockpiles pulled? What do you think, or just got the logistics figured out?
Much more the latter than the former.
Mm,
Really is, it's just Again, they've been staging up in north, all around Gamel and the northern front
Mm-hmm.
in Belarus. But they have finally been able to get sufficient equipment in through Donbass, where they have been able to, hit this area. And for me, this is what I've been trying to tell people since late October, is that the counteroffensive has been great. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
what we've been doing since June has been a fun ride. It's been awesome. It has really lifted the national morale. Um, it's been literally, it's just been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's been good to clean this place out from the Russian terrorists. But I've been saying since June, guys, listen, they're pulling back for a reason. And
Mm-hmm.
when they're ready to hit back, they will hit back, and they're going
Yeah.
to hit back hard. And Solidar is a prime example of what happens when Russia is ready
Mm.
to come back in.
Oh, thanks for clarifying that. That makes a lot of sense. You see, you know, Russia's kind of, sort of, I guess, engaging in what we would in America consider maneuver warfare now, more than they were, I guess, in the summer of last year. Is that just lessons learned, or is that being forced to, or is they just finally had enough of getting, murdered by front assaults?
Well, I think it's two things, actually. Number one is a change in leadership on the ground here.
Mm-hmm.
As you know very well, I've seen your posts and your writings about that. Russia has been continuing to change on the ground command over the past 90 days. Um, and the new men that are coming in with a much more aggressive, much more what I would consider typical Soviet conventional warfare tactical mindset,
Mm.
which is really assault and there is no retreat. So,
Yeah.
um, unlike previous command that has been here since the 24th of February, that has retreated when necessary um, and when you should retreat, we're not seeing that at all.
Mm.
And again, I think Bakhmut and Solidar
Yeah.
is a prime example. There is no longer any retreat. It is forward. There is no second option. Um, and the second one is that um, their 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 intentional withdrawal from most of these areas since June has been very strategic.
Mm.
Although it sounds very counterproductive, it has been strategic for them because it has allowed them to regather and reposition almost a 500,000 guys
Yeah.
in comparison to the 135,000 that were here last February.
Mm.
So when they're ready to go back in, and we're sitting here right now tonight waiting for that to happen,
Mm.
um, we're no longer facing 135,000 guys on three different fronts.
Yeah.
Now we're facing, upwards of a 500,000.
Yeah. And I know this is kind of came out of the blue, but Putin tomorrow is going to do an announcement of some
Right.
proportion. Do you think it could be something along the lines of a broad offensive? Is what he's announcing, or do you have any speculations that you care to touch on for that?
No, man, I'm gonna shy away from that,
Sure.
and because, be honestly, any comment that I would make on that would not be really beneficial to our
Hmm.
men and women on the ground
Sure.
right now.
Understand.
Thank you, thank you.
Sure. Yeah. No. And I know you deal a lot with civilians. And in multiple areas, primarily, you know, eastern Ukraine. Um,
Correct,
and you're pulling, back during the fall counteroffensive. You're pulling people out of Izium when you could, and you're going all over the
correct.
place. In Bakhmut, there's still civilians there, and I'm sure
Yes, there is.
to the Western American mind that is just not even insane; it's asinine. But
It
could you
is.
kind of explain that, why the civilians stay there even when, I mean, they're just getting hammered? There's no
They are hammered.
pretty way to put it.
No, there's not. We just lost a lady.
Mm. Well.
So you probably just want to hit pause. Yeah, for the extractions and for getting people to come out, the biggest difficulty is that so many of them, and I believe many Americans and Westerners can appreciate at least this gesture, is that they say, I was born here, I've lived here, my life is here, therefore I'm going to die here.
Mm.
And we hear that phrase so often. We hear it again and again and again. And then secondly, to be honest with you, is the big question: if I leave here, where do I go?
Mm. Yeah.
And that's the question of the hour.
Mm.
Okay, where do they go?
Yeah.
Okay, because once I bring them out of Bakhmut, once I bring them out of these areas, I am extremely limited, very limited,
Mm.
to government resources, or even international European resources or UN resources, to help these people once they do come out.
Yeah.
And so, practically a year later now, they're a little wiser that if I leave, I will literally be on the street. And guess what?
Mm.
It's cold outside.
Oh yeah.
So it's like that, both of those things are the predominant factors in
Mm.
why they do not leave.
Mm.
And it's sad because it does hinder the Ukrainian armed forces' ability to fight and
Mm.
defend when you have civilians right there on the ground, out in
Yeah.
the open.
Yeah.
But you know that you know it's hard. It's
Yeah.
hard. I have compassion for them. I empathize with them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I do everything in my power, as persuasive as I am,
Mm-hmm.
to literally just beg these people, get out, get in the
Mm-hmm.
van, get in the truck, get in the vehicle,
Mm-hmm.
let's go.
Yeah. Because then I mean I'm sure you've seen it before. There's just houses with civilians. I'm sure have gotten hit
Oh,
practically every day.
all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the time. Yeah,
And
all the time.
that's not something anybody
So
wants to see. I'm sure.
no, God no.
Yeah.
But like, one of the things that has to, I believe, there has been a subtle but noticeable shift in Kiev's position on Bakhmut, and I'd like to go on record to maybe share that for those that might not have seen or recognize the wording, because I don't need the translator.
Mm.
I get it live feed and everything. But
Yeah.
up till now, to be real honest with you, up until about, I'm going to say, let's say 17 days ago, it has been basically an all-in Alamo.
Mm-hmm.
Bakhmut will stand, or we will die trying to keep it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Actually, that has now very subtly, very quietly changed
Mm.
to where Kiev is now conceding very quietly, obviously, that we will defend it. And I'm gonna quote directly from President Zelensky.
Mm-hmm.
We will defend it to the point where it is no longer proper, and that's the wording he used,
Mm-hmm.
proper to continue to defend it. So that is Kiev's
Yep.
subtle way of saying the time is coming
Mm-hmm.
where we will actually let it go,
Yeah.
and we will hold up around Kramatorsk and Slavyansk, because we
Mm-hmm.
have to keep Kramatorsk and Slavyansk,
Mm-hmm.
because there's a lot of very important
Yeah.
things to Ukraine there.
Yeah. And
And
gateway to the east,
once
pretty
again,
much.
well, yeah, and those are the next big dots that connect them on the way back up to Izium and eventually Kharkiv.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, Bakhmut is no longer a all in, down to the last man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now it is changing to where Russians are making more gains now, not so much because they're better at their tactics and they're better at their flanking. It's because we have a much smaller group of men and women that are there defending it.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And kind of, you've been all over Ukraine for this whole ordeal, and you've been there for
Yeah.
over 25 years.
Yep.
In the areas where there isn't, active warfare,
Right.
there's sure there's air raids and airstrikes. A lot of Ukraine's having that, depending on the day, it can be every day
Right.
depending. But I've noticed people are, still trying to get on with their lives, and they should, because, as we all remember in the pandemic, you just can't put your life on hold for 2 years or whatever.
Right.
How, I guess, successful slash profitable has it been to do that for the people of Ukraine?
Well, that opens up a very long-running
Sure.
wound within Ukraine. There,
Hmm.
there has always been an East-West division
Hmm.
because Western Ukraine is ethnically Ukrainian, and Eastern Ukraine is ethnically Russian.
Hmm.
And the war has been since 2014 here in East.
Yep.
And so the Ukrainians out west have always looked at it. This is an Eastern problem. This is not our problem.
Hmm.
And um, I just returned back from Lvov and talked to people while I was in Lvov, and their sentiment has not changed in 2023 than it was back in 2014.
Mm.
I had so many people tell me, "What war?"
That's sad.
It's like they are so willfully ignorant
Mm.
and ignoring of the fact that 750 miles away there is the biggest war since World War II.
Hmm.
And yet, because it is so far removed from them, okay, we got a few air raids once in a while, we get our electric station hit once in a while, but other than that, it's business as usual, and life goes on. And that just continues to breed this division between East and West, because everybody that's out east, um, you know, the military are here on the streets. They stop every man they can find, make sure that
Hmm.
he's registered. At the military stations.
Yep.
Out west, you don't see any of that.
Mm.
And so it's like, why are we fighting and dying for all of Ukraine while the rest of Ukraine continues to party on and live on,
Hmm.
and they're not helping?
Yeah.
So yeah, you do have to go on with your life, but you got to understand your life is dependent upon what happens out east.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. That's something I just kind of noticed, and I wanted your kind of take on that. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's
Um.
there, man.
Yeah. Um. Obviously, it's been talked about by a lot of people that Russia's new offensive is coming. Um.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the Western aid will get there in time? That's kind of a big.
No.
Okay. I didn't think so either.
No.
Just wanted you.
Yeah. No,
And.
sir. No, sir. And the public opinion is yes, of course it will, especially with Biden's appearance today in Kiev for an hour.
Mm.
Um, the public opinion is yes, it will. Yeah, we're going to make it through. Yay, America's coming to us. The
Mm.
rescue, blah blah. But that sentiment is not held anywhere amongst on the ground command leadership.
Hmm.
Amongst battalion leadership, they are unified without any exception that I've run across yet. They understand very well that there's a lot of promise,
Mm.
but they're not going to get it in time. And
Yeah.
so they are very much planning and preparing based upon what they have,
Hmm.
not based upon what they could be
Yeah.
receiving.
Definitely the Colin Powell. Go to war with the army you have, not the one you're going
Right.
to have.
Exactly.
And would you say that sadly that's been a theme throughout the war as far as Western aid getting to Ukraine? Just it hasn't been there on time.
It hasn't been on time, and unfortunately it's been minuscule, and
Mm.
folks just don't see the genuine value of investing in what's happening in Ukraine. Um, Give me 30 seconds.
Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah.
And okay. Back at the beginning of the war, down outside of Mariupol was the world's largest chicken factory, the
Mm,
world's biggest chicken farm anywhere on the planet. The Russians forbade the ownership of that place to get diesel in to feed the automatic feeders, to feed like literally millions of
hmm
chickens. They all starved to death, died, all of them.
mm,
So for the past 11 months, egg prices around the world have gone up
mm.
insanely.
Yeah.
Okay. So folks in America for the past 10 months have spent literally an additional $100 or more combined in additional prices for eggs than they did like over a year ago.
Yep.
All right. Of all the promised aid that America has promised to Ukraine, okay, 18.5 billion in combined total aid, that's not dollars, that's just
Mm,
combined aid, has physically arrived inside of Ukraine. 18.5 billion.
yeah.
Sounds like a lot. That's
hmm
$3.50 out of your pocket,
Yep.
yours. Okay, $3.50. That's it.
Yep.
You've already paid more in higher egg prices and higher bread and grain prices in the
hmm
past year combined than $3.50 out of your pocket to help Ukraine.
Yep.
Okay, so for people to continue to say that America has bigger problems and Ukraine is the European problem and la di blah,
hmm
really, the
Yep.
nuts and bolts and the dollars and cents of the deal is Ukraine is a huge part of American world policy.
Yep.
And once again, it's going to come down to if we don't get into it now, we're going to have to get into it later when it's more
hmm
expensive.
Yep. Because there are people in the Russian Duma parliament saying they want to go all the way to East Germany and then some, and
Yep.
give them 10 years to re-equip, and they'll do it. There's no
Yes, sir.
Saddam
No
who
question.
Saddam
Yep.
Hussein's a great example of that. We knocked him out in '91, and then whether or not we should have been in Iraq, who knows? Who cares? But in 2003, he was ready again. And
Yeah.
better than ever. So,
Well, let me say this. Having been here on the ground for a quarter of a century, let me make it very clear. Forget what you read on the internet. Forget the conspiracy theories. I'll buy your plane ticket to fly over here. I will take you down to Bakhmut. I will take you to places and I will let you see it firsthand, first person with your own eyes.
mm,
And then you tell me that this is not a just moral cause.
yes, exactly. Good way to put it. And I want to add one thing because it's something that people, particularly in America, seem to have a problem with. Is America is capable of dealing with more than one problem at a time. And for some
Yeah.
reason, when there's one crisis, everybody focuses on that. And if anybody so happens to try to divert proper attention to another crisis or problem, that person gets ostracized. And America's bigger than that. And, you know, I think that's a very foolish way of trying to solve the problems that we face in our lives and in this world is by, focusing on singular problems and ignoring everything else. And whether that be with money or political focus or whatever, America can focus on, you know, really hundreds of problems at a time as far as globally, if we want to talk about it like that, and also here at home in America. And it frustrates me when I see that people don't realize that.
Yeah. I agree.
Uh,
I agree.
well, I know you've had a very, very long day, and if you want to add anything else, please. I don't want to keep you too long. Um, yeah, I know you've and you've got a very long week ahead of you. So, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be a great week this week. Tomorrow, we're back down right outside of Bakhmut to bring out 3 families and take them to Western Ukraine to safety. And then on Friday, we return back down there. We've been able to find and gather 11 homeless, parentless children
Wow.
in and around Bakhmut. And we will be taking them to a UN funded center over in actual Europe itself.
Nice.
So a lot of logistics, a lot of
hmm
traveling, a lot of driving. But there's so much that can be done and that needs
hmm
to be done. And I just encourage people, really look into it. There are good, proven, vetted NGO humanitarian organizations that are trying to make differences in people's
Hmm.
lives.
Yes.
And at the end of the story, it doesn't matter about politics. It doesn't
Hmm.
matter about religion or anything else like that.
Yep.
It comes down to humanity.
Exactly.
And that's what we've been trying to do. And that's what we're going to continue to do. I just don't get sidetracked with what I would say is a normal, there's nothing wrong with it, but the normal America first mentality.
Hmm. Exactly. I like that. And America first doesn't mean America only either. So,
Correct.
yeah.
That's the point I'm making. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
America first does not mean America only.
Yep.
Well
So,
put.
all
Thank
right.
you, brother.
Thank you. You take care and you have a good week. I really appreciate you coming
All
on,
right.
Doc. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me on. I
I
appreciate the
appreciate it.
privilege.
Thank you.
All right. Yep. Good night.
Good night. Bye.